At around 1:30 a.m. on February 2nd, 2021, officers responded to reports of a shooting at the home where Brittany Anderson and her family lived. There, they encountered an armed man.
Towards me. Turn around.
A man made the 911 call, and the man's voice can be heard only twice during the recording. Once at the beginning when he requests an ambulance.
Hey, I need an ambulance.
I need an ambulance. I've been shot. Kids have been shot.
They're coming as fast as they can, okay?
And again when the dispatcher asks Anderson about her assailant's identity and whereabouts.
Is the assailant still nearby? Can you hear me? Is the attacker still nearby?
Yes.
What's the name of the person that did this to you?
I can't say.
Is the person still there with you?
Yeah, I'm here.
They're coming, okay? The officers are gonna take care of you, okay?
An officer discharged his rifle once, missed, and the man ran away.
Slowly put it down. He's got a gun. Running southbound, he's got a gun. I'm with you, Gumby. Fuck. Watch your left, hit this car. Show your hands! Contact, north side. No. Show us your hands! Right here. Behind that tree over here. Walk this way with your hands up!
They finally managed to catch up to him, and he was placed under arrest.
North side of Pleasant Valley. You're not knowing your hands! Okay. We're good, we can open here. Who's got? Fuck, dude. I just go. We're approaching. Greg's out here.
The man was 25-year-old Jaron Dejan Pridgeon, and he was not only the suspect in the Muskogee shootings, but was also the person who made the first 911 call about the incident.
What's your name?
Officers were now moving through the home, and it was painfully silent. The woman Jaron had passed the phones to was 27-year-old Brittany Anderson, and she was clinging to life. A paramedic said her injuries were life-threatening, and they feared the worst as they waited for a helicopter to take her to the hospital. As they moved through the home, they found a young man and 4 of Brittany's small children. They had all been shot to death. Another one of her children was badly injured and fighting for their life too. Brittany had 8 children in total, and her 3 other children were inside the house as well, a 7-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a 1-month-old. Thankfully, they were unharmed and taken to the Oklahoma Department of Human Services before later reuniting with their grandparents. The helicopter arrived and airlifted Brittany and her young child to a Tulsa hospital about 40 miles away. Brittany was whisked away to the ICU with swelling and bleeding on her brain. Tragically, her child, who went with her, passed away shortly after arriving.
A tragic mass murder in this Muskogee neighborhood. Neighbors are just shaken to the core after what happened here overnight. 7 people in one family shot here in this home that you see here behind me. Police found 1 man and 4 children dead in the home. A woman and another child were life-flighted to a Tulsa hospital where the 5th child died. The woman still fighting for her life tonight. Sky 5 flying over the scene hours after police got the call around 1:30 this morning. Neighbors in shock.
But it's been a fairly quiet neighborhood and just a sad deal.
When officers went inside the scene, they discovered 4 small children had been shot and 1 adult male. There was another female that was taken to the hospital with another small child. They were both life-flighted to a Tulsa hospital where that small child also was pronounced deceased. We don't believe that it's random, but we just don't have details yet of the why or what happened.
Now, we're still waiting to hear more from police on what happened. That's the latest here from Muskogee. Katrina Adger, KOCO 5 News.
Brittany Anderson lived in the home with her 8 children, a busy household full of laughter and life. Jaron, their suspect, was the father of 5 of them. Once her partner, he had become an ex who came and went, never staying in the home for long periods of time. No one could have imagined that the moments of everyday life would turn into a nightmare. Before the tragedy, the siblings were inseparable. They shared a love for the outdoors and spent countless hours imagining worlds of adventure together. They even had a little ritual, a goodbye routine of a high 2, a high 5, and a fist bump that became a symbol of their closeness. It was a kind of simple, sweet family tradition that made neighbors smile and linger a moment longer when passing by. Then came the night that changed everything. What had been ordinary, a family, a home, a quiet neighborhood, became the site of a loss so profound it left those who knew them in stunned silence. The suspect, Jaron Pridgeon, has now been formally charged. He was escorted into court for his first appearance, facing 6 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of 5 children and his brother, Javarian. The mother of the children remains in the hospital, fighting to survive injuries that could have taken her life. In court, Jaron was held without bond. He sat expressionless and uncooperative, offering no explanation, no remorse, no reason for the devastation he brought to a family and an entire community.
The suspect in this shooting is now charged. Fox 23 was there as Jaron Pridgeon was escorted into court for his first appearance this afternoon on 6 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of 5 children and his brother yesterday in Muskogee. A 7th victim, as you just heard, the children's mother remains in the hospital. Fox 23.
For neighbors, the loss is almost too heavy to bear. What was once a house filled with laughter now sits quiet and still, a stark reminder of lives cut far too short and the fragile nature of safety and peace. Friends, family, and strangers alike struggle to put into words the heartache of watching a vibrant family be torn apart, a pain that will linger in this neighborhood for years to come. It was a crime so cruel it was beyond comprehension, a loss that shook this community to its core. Neighbors, first responders, and strangers alike were left with a shared sense of anger, pain, and heartbreak for a family forever changed. Authorities described the shooting as one of the most heinous crimes in the city's modern history. In the days that followed, the neighborhood began to transform into a spontaneous memorial. Flowers, balloons, and heartfelt notes started lining the front of the home where the tragedy unfolded. Children from all around brought their toys and placed them gently against the fence, tokens of innocence for the young lives that were taken far too soon. A day after the shooting, the grief of the community turned into collective support. Numerous people gathered in a nearby park to sing, pray, and hold one another up.
We need a God. Lord, it's a pain that none of us can acknowledge.
The toll on Muskogee was already deep, but something remarkable began to emerge. Neighbors were rallying together in a way few had ever seen. Restaurants offered free meals, support agencies sent counseling teams, and therapy dogs comforted those who could hardly find words to express their sorrow. Against all odds, Brittany Anderson, the children's mother, was still alive. She woke in the hospital, sitting up and speaking, but the reality she faced was devastating. 5 of her children had been murdered. When she tried to recall that night, she described it as a blur. Everything had happened so fast. She remembered telling Jaron, the suspect, that he could visit the kids as he was passing through on his way to Texas. He told her he would never hurt her. Moments later, she said, everything changed. In and out of consciousness, Brittany remembered hearing the paramedics whispering that the children were deceased, but at the time, it didn't register. Nothing about what had happened made sense to her for days afterwards. As the community continues to grieve, neighbors speak of the family they knew, the laughter that once filled the yard, the small everyday moments that were so ordinary before they were gone. And while nothing can take away the pain, the outpouring of support stands as a testament to how deeply this tragedy has touched everyone here. Even after the tragedy, the community continued to rally around Brittany and her family in every way they could. A fund was quickly set up to help cover the costs of the funerals, raising $45,000 in support. On February 13th, all 5 children were laid to rest. Neighbors and friends gathered to pay their respects, knowing that no ceremony could truly heal the pain, but determined to stand together in grief and remembrance.
We did get permission from the family to be outside of today's service, and we saw family walking out of the service tearful and emotional. Muskogee police officers were also there today to show their support, and Mayor Marlon Coleman was one of the speakers at the service, and he says the children's mother, Brittany Anderson, was at the service today.
It was traumatic for me to walk through the door and see 5 caskets. I think it was traumatic for everybody to walk through the door and see 5 caskets. For her to see that, I can only imagine. It's inexplainable.
2 years later, the silence remains. Jaron, the suspect, has said nothing about what drove him to commit such an unthinkable act. Brittany's home, once filled with the sounds of children playing, laughter, and life, is now painfully quiet. Any sense of normalcy is gone. The joy and happiness that once filled the rooms have been replaced by emptiness and sorrow. Without the pitter-patter of tiny feet, she lives in a stillness that echoes the magnitude of her loss, a quiet that is both physical and emotional, a daily reminder of a life forever changed. The heartbreak lingers, but so does the strength of those who surround her. Even in the darkest moments, the community's support and love are a small light amid unimaginable grief. That strength would be tested again as the case moved through the justice system. In the years that followed the shooting, the legal process was slow and painful, marked by delays, evaluations, and unanswered questions. For Brittany and the families affected, every court date reopened wounds that had never truly healed.
First at 6, a judge rules there is enough evidence against a Muskogee man charged with murdering 5 children and his brother for that man to stand trial.
News on 6's Amelia McGavro has more from today's preliminary hearing for Jaron Pridgen. She also spoke exclusively to the children's mother, who is the only survivor of those shootings.
Jaron was brought before the court to face some of the most serious charges possible under the law. Prosecutors formally charged him with 6 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of shooting with intent to kill, and 1 count of possession of a firearm while under a prior conviction or probation. At the beginning of the proceedings, Jaron entered a not guilty plea. This plea meant that he denied legal responsibility for the crimes and required prosecutors to prove every charge beyond a reasonable doubt. Given the severity of the case, the prosecution announced its intent to seek the death penalty. However, before the case could move forward, the presiding judge ordered that Pridgen undergo a psychiatric evaluation. The purpose of this evaluation was to determine whether he was mentally competent to stand trial and whether his mental state at the time of the crime could affect his legal responsibility. The case experienced repeated delays. Court schedules were disrupted, psychiatric assessments took time, and the COVID-19 pandemic further slowed the legal process, leaving the case unresolved for years. In May 2023, a major shift occurred. Court filings revealed that Jaron intended to change his plea from not guilty to not guilty by reason of insanity. This change did not mean he was claiming the crime never happened. Instead, it meant his defense was arguing that, at the time of the offense, he was suffering from a severe mental illness that prevented him from understanding his actions or knowing that they were wrong under the law. A trial date was initially set for October 2023, but additional legal and procedural delays made it uncertain whether the trial would proceed as scheduled. Throughout this entire period, Jaron remained largely silent, offering no public explanation for his actions. As the case continued through the court system, family members of the victims addressed the court, expressing their grief, anger, and the lasting emotional toll caused by the crime.
6, a judge rules there is enough evidence against a Muskogee man charged with murdering 5 children and his brother for that man to stand trial.
News on 6's Amelia McGavro has more from today's preliminary hearing for Jaron Pridgen. She also spoke exclusively to the children's mother, who is the only survivor of those shootings.
Anderson says she testified about the night she and her 5 children were shot. She was the only survivor.
It was kind of hard going over it and just thinking about it, but like I said, I wanted to get justice for my babies, so I just gave them the answers that came to my recollection.
The media, as well as Anderson's own family, had to wait outside the courtroom because the hearing was closed to the public.
I'm not happy that we did not get to go in the courtroom with her.
And that's what we're fighting for justice. And that's what we want. That's what she wants for her children, and that's what I want for my grandchildren. It's justice.
I got God on my side, so everything's going to be okay.
The prolonged legal process only deepened the pain for those seeking justice, while the court worked to determine whether punishment or psychiatric confinement would ultimately apply. In the end, the court was left to decide not only how justice should be served, but whether punishment or lifelong psychiatric confinement was the appropriate outcome for one of the most disturbing cases it had ever faced. Years after the shooting, in 2024, the case finally reached its conclusion. Jaron Pridgen pleaded guilty to 6 counts of first-degree murder, admitting responsibility for the deaths of 5 children and his brother. By accepting a plea, he avoided a lengthy trial and the possibility of the death penalty. Instead, the court sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, along with additional life sentences on the remaining counts. For the court, it was the end of a case. For Brittany, it was not closure, but confirmation. Confirmation that the man who shattered her family would never walk free again. Justice, in this sense, could not restore what was lost, but it ensured accountability. Today, Brittany continues to live with a silence that once held laughter. The legal chapter may be closed, but the emotional journey is ongoing, one shaped by grief, resilience, and the enduring memory of the lives taken far too soon. If this story moved you, take a moment to honor the lives lost by remembering them, by choosing compassion, and by supporting organizations that help victims of violence and grieving families. Share this story not for shock, but for awareness, so these lives are never forgotten, and so conversations that lead to prevention can continue. And if you or someone you know is struggling in silence, reach out. No one should have to carry pain alone.